much in the spotlight. And this young man, who is a rookie in the series, Greg Moore, I'm just curious about what this week has been like. Are you soaking this up, enjoying it? Is it a distraction? How do you look at it?
I'm enjoying it. It's been a lot of hard work. I got here Monday night, and I've been doing stuff ever since. I think I've probably done about 30 appearances. Thanks for players in Molson, Indy. It's just been it's been a crazy week, but it all pays off for today.
Did you ever think, as you were coming up, when you were driving the karts and you got into Indy Lights, one thing or another, that this quickly stardom would be resting on your shoulders?
Well, I wouldn't really say stardom's resting on my shoulders. I'd say more national pride than anything. But it's on me and Paul. Paul was fast this morning in warm-up. You know, I did a pretty good job, and I'm real excited about our race today.
Starting in the third row, Greg Moore, Paul.
And Danny's pick for the day as a potential winner. Now, we're standing with Mike Hall. Now, Mike is normally the team manager for that team that Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi drives for. But today the role changes. You become a mechanic once again. Why is that?
Our chief mechanic for Alex's car has what they think is Lyme's disease, and he's been in the hospital since last Monday evening, fighting for his life, and I kind of have to fill two roles this weekend.
I mean, it's been very serious. At age 34, he has been in the hospital. They even put in a pacemaker.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they said that he flatlined in the emergency room. Not something we wanted to hear, and at a guy his age and what he does for us, it's a big problem, a big loss for us.
Mike, do you find that there's going to be any break in the synergy or the flow of the team since you've now gone away from team manager to kind of chief mechanic again? Is that going to disrupt things?
I don't think it helps our team. I mean, we could stand around and say how one guy can do a lot of jobs. Our team's a tremendous team. Chip's put together a great bunch of guys, and that everybody uses that rhetoric a lot in racing. You know, you hear it a lot in these interviews, but it's true. We've got well-trained mechanics. Tom Anderson is our managing director. He was our team manager, so he can help an awful lot. And the guys have pitched in a lot because they know how important it is now. We think Alex can win this race today. And we're working hard for Rob and Alex and everybody else on the team.
All right, so Mike Hall, one of the stories here today as we look at a pivotal time in the championship. Many of the drivers in their final preparations parade around to say hello to the crowd, and then we go racing.
Well, Paul, one team that's done incredibly well all year, the Chip Ganassi team, Target as the sponsor. Alex Zanardi, a winner already. Jimmy Vasser, the current point leader. Alex, how important is your starting position today? You're right up here in the front.
Well, it is very important because normally if you are in the front, you don't have the risk to hit anybody because you got nobody in front of you, so you can brake whenever you want. But it looks like I'm going to have Andre at the first turn, and I hope if I can get unhurt out of the first few laps, then I think we should have a good race because the car worked very well this morning in the warm-up.
We see a new design on your helmet. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there is not much to tell. It's a pineapple, and it's a thing for luck. And in the last two races, it's been working pretty well. So.
And of course, you're wishing your crew chief and your engineer Rob the best wishes back in Indianapolis.
Well, the guy is really crucial for us, so I hope he's going to be well soon, but not for us, for himself. But yeah, Rob, get well soon. We need you, and we miss you all.
And Gary Gerald, you can see the entire group of cars set up to bring the entire field of today's race in Toronto down for a parade lap. Let's go to you.
Always an exciting time, Jack. And now you've heard from the drivers. Let's hear from the crew standpoint. Richard Buck, I know you're not feeling 100% today. You're kind of down. He works with Al Unser Jr. You've been there in the glory days with championships. This year, I know there's some frustration in terms of not getting wins. But how about it from the crew standpoint with the championship still very, very tight?
That's just it, Gary. We're got a couple guys that are down for the count. Let me say get well to Matt King, who he's been sick back at the hotel this whole time. But the driver's healthy, and that's the main thing that counts. We'll be able to handle the pit stops and stuff. These guys are the best in the business, so they're taking care of everything.
What do you go through on race day? How apprehensive, how nervous do you get?
It's pretty much routine. You just don't want to leave any stone unturned. You want to make you go through your routine and your checklist and whatnot, and try and foresee help foresee what may happen during the race practice and have backup plans, and that's pretty much it.
We hear a lot about athletes playing hurt. Our Buck playing hurt today, Danny Sullivan.
Well, thanks very much. I'm here with Derek Walker, who of course ran my team for many years when I drove for Penske, one of the best. You're now back to two cars with Toronto's Scott Goodyear. How's it going?
Well, it's a first race back for Scott since he's been off since his accident. So we're struggling with that, getting up to speed for Scott, and he hasn't had a lot of miles in the car. So a little bit of a, backward step for him on the grid, but I think he'll make out okay in a race.
Well, there's a lot of rumors going around about everything that's going on, particularly Robbie Gordon, everything. What are your plans that you can speak about for next year?
Well, I think you said it, Danny, what I can speak about. Obviously, a lot of plans. This is the time of year where everybody starts looking at their program, and we're no different. We're looking at a lot of options, a lot of rumor, but nothing's confirmed at this point in time.
Well, there we go. We've heard it from Derek. We're looking forward for a good race. Now back to Paul.
Derek Walker, Robbie Gordon, they're ready, and Christian Fittipaldi in Orlando at the invitation of Texaco got to run with the Olympic torch as it continues on to make its way toward Atlanta for the 100th anniversary of the Olympic Games. Christian Fittipaldi absolutely loved that moment. We'll be back with some more interesting folks. Cars making that official circle. Very soon we'll be back here in the pit area, which is where they have the cars lined up rather than on the main straightaway, and they'll then climb in, get that command to start engines. John Della Penna, of course, is the owner of the car, driven by Richie Hearn. You are here with a 1995 machine. How much do you think you're giving away, if anything?
Oh, we're giving quite a bit away, especially this weekend. I think we're having a bit of a tough weekend. Richie had a big crash this week in testing, and he hurt his neck a little bit, so he's been under a lot of pain. And
that was the testing at Loudon.
Yes, exactly. So we're without a spare car. Plus, on top of that, Richie's been hurting a little bit. But overall, I'm pretty happy. I think that we'll try to finish the race, do the best we can, like we did at Long Beach, and gain some experience for next year.
Well, and also now you're also one of the few guys who trying to run as much of both series as you possibly can. What are you finding the differences between the two?
Well, technology primarily. I mean, the packages here in terms of engines and tires and chassis are much more advanced. A lot more R&D's gone into them. So when we get here, I found even from our weekend at Long Beach that the gap is widened between us and the rest of the car teams a little bit. You can see where they've gained a little ground. So, each time we join these guys, in between races, we get a little farther behind. So hopefully next year we can do our homework over the winter and close that gap a little bit.
John Della Penna, who takes charge of Richie Hearn's car, sitting right behind us there, carrying the number 44. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, Alex Herring is the chief mechanic for Gilles de Ferran, coming off the victory in Cleveland. You guys are generating a lot of momentum, but you're starting back in the 5th row today. How do you assess your driver's chances of doubling up with a second straight victory?
Well, I have to come back to when we started at Cleveland, and we started there in the 7th position, and we worked our way up very steadily at the beginning of the race and right on through, and we ended up winning. So I can only hope that we can do the same thing. I'm just happy to be in 9th instead of 17th this time.
Absolutely. The difference, of course, being Cleveland, wide open spaces, a lot of concrete to worry about here today.
Yes, there is.
Danny?
Zig, you're here. I know everybody knows you as Ziggy here in the pit lane. Real name Paul Harkes. You're back with a new driver, Mark Blundell. How are your chances today?
We've got a decent chance, but the Firestone tire is going to be real tough this week. Mark's doing a good job this weekend, but we're still quite a way back down the grid, so it's going to be a struggle for us.
Good luck to you. Ziggy and I have run a lot together, but he's got a tough afternoon in front of him.
And it's good seeing both of those two guys together because they've raced a lot of miles together. Danny, of course, I like him a lot better in the commentary booth as we move toward the start.
Toronto, Canada, the entire starting grid is now assembled on pit road, and we're going to give you the traditional look at the starting grid. You've talked to Andre Ribeiro. There's his car from Team Tasman. He'll bring the field down on the point. Taking a look on the outside of the front row, well, it's Alex Zanardi. There's the helmet we were talking about that Zanardi will wish best wishes to his engineer, Rob. Going back to the second row, and this is a great story. Adrian Fernandez, teammate for the pole winner, will start directly behind his rear wing. Fernandez in the Team Ducati car. For Tasman will start on the inside of that row, and a man that's in the midst of the points hunt, still looking for a victory, is Scott Pruitt for Pat Patrick. Then Canadian's ace, carrying, as he said, the pride of Canada with him, Greg Moore will find himself on the inside of row 3. Flanking him on the outside, the man that did a lot of the development work for the Honda engine. We've heard and talked to Parker Johnstone throughout the year. They're still trying to win. further back, another man that will play a critical role in today's race. May not be there for the win, but you've heard us talk about it. Al Unser Jr. seeking points. Flanking him on the outside, one of the old graybeards right now being driven by Bobby Rahal out of Ohio. Rahal won the first race here ever. Gilles de Ferran, hot off his win at Cleveland, will start on the inside of the next row. Flanking him on the outside, of course, will be Michael Andretti. He's won so often here. Andretti, a 4-time winner here at Toronto. And all the way back here, mired in the middle of the field, the current point leader, teammate to Alex Zanardi. Look, Jimmy Vasser's crew making final adjustments. Vasser ahead by just 3 points. Flanking him on the outside, complete with the goatee. Still waiting for his first victory, teammate to Bobby Rahal. That, of course, fellow Ohio Buckeye. I'm running out of breath here. That man, Brian Herta, coming back after being injured here 2 years ago, back at full song. Coming back here to Paul Tracy and flanking Tracy in the Penske car on the outside in the Newman-Haas entry with Budweiser. We saw him carrying the torch as we went to break, Christian Fittipaldi. And then going back to the next row, row 7, Gary Gerould picks it up.
Well, Jack, here we are with a team that desperately wants to finish a race. Emerson Fittipaldi, of course, drives this car, hasn't been able to finish the last 3. He starts inside in this row and right alongside one of the Pac West cars, Mark Blundell, who scored points in 4 of the last 5 events, coming off that devastating crash he had early in the season down at Rio de Janeiro. We drop back to the next row, and here's the Pac West teammate, Big Mo, Mauricio Guzman and his crew, waiting for the driver to come in for the parade. Alongside of him, Robbie Gordon. Talk about tough luck drivers this year. Only 2 top 10 finishes for the Derek Walker team there. They're hoping for much better, obviously, today. Another tough luck driver, Raul Boisel, been shaking his head, it seems like, every time we've seen him all season long, hoping that they can get something going in car 1. Jeff Krosnoff in the Toyota program stepping up for Cal Wells and the Arciero team. They qualified 20th. They're very excited about the progress that they've made coming into this event on the streets of Toronto. Tony Bentonhausen's team, the Alumax team, and of course Stefan Johansson is the driver. They've been kind of up and down on a roller coaster this year. Well, alongside Roberto Moreno, had that terrific run on the US 500, a podium finish, a career best for him. Now we swing back to the next row, and here's a great story as well. This is Scott Goodyear. Remember, he hurt himself, broke his back down in Rio, his first time back in an IndyCar. He's back in the field, got a lot of work to do. Eddie Lawson's alongside, driving for the Gallus team. And we swing back still another row here as we take a walk down through the starting grid. Here's one of the Dan Gurney cars. And we're just going to have to probably stop here with P.J. Jones. Alongside is Richie Hearn. And rounding out the field, Juan Manuel Fangio and Hiro Masushita. So there you have it, 28 cars ready to go. We'll have more from Toronto in just a moment.
And coming up next here on The Deuce, Ultimate Flights. Now, here from Toronto, we'll take a look at the starting grid. The 28 cars on the pole is Andre Ribeiro. Alex Zanardi, the rookie, starts alongside. In the second row, Adrian Fernandez and Scott Pruitt. The rookie Greg Moore and Parker Johnstone make up row 3. In row 4, it's Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal. The 5th row, Gilles de Ferran and Michael Andretti. Row 6, Jimmy Vasser, Brian Herta. The 7th row, Paul Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi. In the 8th row, Emerson Fittipaldi and rookie Mark Blundell. Row 9, Mauricio Guzman and Robbie Gordon. In the 10th row, Raul Boisel and rookie Jeff Krosnoff. Row 11, Stefan Johansson and Roberto Moreno. The 12th row, Scott Goodyear and Eddie Lawson. Row 13, P.J. Jones and Richie Hearn. And in row 14, Juan Manuel Fangio and Hiro Masushita. Now, do you ever wonder what drivers do on a pit stop? Well, Jack Arute does.
You know, we've talked a lot about the choreography that a pit crew goes through during their pit stop, but did you ever wonder what a driver does? Well, he gets awfully busy on pit road. When he comes off of the racetrack onto pit road, he's got a downshift, come down through the gearbox, finding first gear and maintaining a 60-mile-an-hour speed. He focuses, finds his pit stall, turns in, then hits the marks exactly, straightens the wheel, and depresses the brake, keeping his foot on the brake at all times. If he wants a drink, now's the time to take it. If he doesn't, he pushes it away. He uses this button to key the radio and communicate with his crew. In the meantime, the service is just about completed. He's got to pop the car back into first gear. He also has to reset the fuel metering device with this button here. When they drop the car off the jack, he's got to come back up through the gearbox using the accelerator and this red button here. This will make sure that the car does not exceed 60 miles an hour. At the end of pit road, he's got to focus and find a place to blend back out onto the racetrack at full song. Now, it took me over a minute just to tell you all the things a driver has to do. Drivers during a pit stop have to accomplish it all in less than 12 seconds. Now, my final thoughts today revolve around the promise that the Honda Firestone teams have shown all year. They've been consistent winners, but most of it has come from the Target Chip Ganassi team. Look for another team today to show their power. Andre Ribeiro won at Rio back in March. Look for him to do very well today for Team Tasman as well here in Toronto. Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary?
Well, Jack, in the 10 years we've been coming to Toronto, only one time has the man on the pole won this race. You're kind of bucking the odds, it would seem to me, in this situation. But I'm going to take a look at the dominance of Firestone tires in the top 6 positions, Honda in 4 of those 6 power plants. I think that combination still works here. I think Alex Zanardi, who's been on a roll, he won at Portland, he was second at Cleveland. I think he keeps it going today. So I look for him to be atop the podium. Paul?
All right, well, we've heard what Jack and Gary are thinking about. Danny, on this, what could be a very pivotal today? What are you looking for?
Well, I think the Firestones are going to be dominant. It's going to stay warm, and the track's going to be slippery, but I've got to go with young Greg Moore. I think he's due. I think he's hungry. He was very fast in practice. He's my man.
Well, of course, he would be a spoiler in that championship fight if he snatched some of those points away. I'm going to lean toward Parker Johnstone. I think, like Greg Moore, that he is due, in fact, overdue. He's got the power, he's got the operation, so I'm going to keep an eye on Parker. But if either one of those guys win, well, that's going to scramble this points fight even further, and it's going to make it a great run down to the end of the season. So that's what we're looking forward here today at the Molson Indy at the exhibition place in Toronto, Canada. Beautiful day, great crowd. Coming up next, we'll have coverage over on the other side on ABC, live except on the West Coast. So make sure you can come over and join us there. This is Paul Page for Danny Sullivan, Jack Arute, and Gary Gerald. Thanks for joining us. The IndyCars are in Toronto, Canada, and the championship fight is a numbers game. 8. That's all the points that championship leader Jimmy Vasser has earned in the past 4 races. 41. The points Alonso Jr. has scored in the last 4. He's consistent, but yet to win this year. 55. The points earned by Gilles de Ferran in the last 4 events to move him to 3rd in the championship. And 4. The number of wins Michael Andretti has in Toronto in the last 5 years. Michael and the rest are fighting for that elusive number 1. At Exhibition Place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, we join the IndyCars for the PPG IndyCar World Series at the Molson Indy. And we join them right in the middle of a very hot fight for the championship. In fact, today could be the pivotal day for the rest of the season.
Well, I think this is going to be awful important. Jimmy Vasser's back in 11th. He needs to score some points. Al Jr. doesn't need anything better than a 9th place to take the lead if Vasser doesn't finish. And Gilles de Ferran could finish 4th and jump into the lead. This is an unbelievable battle. They've all got to be careful to get through those first couple of laps and score points today.
And Jimmy Vasser cannot go scoreless today. It's critical to him. Now this track here at Toronto's Exhibition Place, they've made some changes.
Well, they have. They took out what I thought was one of the most important corners. Michael Andretti said this was a critical corner for him, gave him a lot of speed. It was very fast. It was one of those ones drivers love, but they've made a long straightaway down into that first corner. It's going to give them one more place to pass.
And you see the passing and the trouble zones on this area. They tend to, on this track, they tend to overlap. And I'll tell you another thing about it. There have been some rather spectacular incidents on this circuit. Now, the engines have already been started. They're rolling on the circuit, so let's take a look at the starting grid. On the pole, it's Andre Ribeiro. This is his 2nd career pole, his 1st on a road course. Alongside Alex Zanardi. He's had a win and a 2nd in the last 2 races. In the 2nd row, Adrian Fernandez, the 1992 Indy Lights winner here at Toronto. And Scott Pruitt, who qualified in the top 5 in 8 of 11 races. Row 3 is Greg Moore, the fastest Mercedes-powered qualified. And Parker Johnstone, his career best second-place finish came from 6th starting spot at Long Beach. In row 4, it's Al Unser Jr., the winner here in both 88 and 90. And Bobby Rahal, who won the first race at Toronto 10 years ago. The 5th row, Gil de Ferran, scored his 2nd career win 2 weeks ago at Cleveland. And Michael Andretti, a 5-time winner here, including his last 4 starts. In row 6, Jimmy Vasser. He's only scored 8 points in the last 4 races. And Brian Herta, his first top 5 finish this year came 2 weeks ago in Cleveland. Row 7, the 93 winner, Paul Tracy and Christian Fittipaldi. In the 8th row, the 87 winner, Emerson Fittipaldi and Mark Blundell. Row 9, Mauricio Gugelmin and Robbie Gordon. The 10th row, Raul Boesel and Jeff Krosnoff. In row 11, Stefan Johansson and Roberto Moreno. The 12th row, Scott Goodyear, his first race since his accident in Brazil, and Eddie Lawson. In row 13, P.J. Jones and Richie Hearn. And the 14th row, Juan Manuel Fangio and Hiro Matsushita. And all 28 were able to start rolling on the circuit. You look over the top of Michael Andretti as we take a look at the race to the championship. And this shows you, Danny Sullivan, the 4 wins for Jimmy Vasser certainly paid off early. The real key with Al Unser Jr. is consistency, no wins.
No wins, but as we said at the beginning of the season, here's a guy that's always there, scores points. He's had trouble in races, but he always seems to be in the points. In fact, if he hadn't had that little faux pas at Detroit, he'd be leading the championship right now.
And of course, Gil de Ferran with 92 points made a big jump with the win 2 weeks ago at Cleveland, but he is very definitely the man on the move. Now let's go to the pit side and Gary Gerald.
Well, one of the reasons everybody loves to come to Toronto to race, the crews have a unique advantage that they don't have at so many other tracks. Here on pit road, they look right across, and there's one of those giant big screens. There's one at each end of the pits. So all day, when their car's not here on pit road, everybody is glued to this screen trying to see how their driver's doing. Jack?
Gary, remember at Cleveland there were 2 different philosophies about the race within Target Team Ganassi, and Jimmy Vasser was looking for points. Tom Anderson here calls the shots. I asked him just moments ago, have you changed or given any advice to Jimmy today about points? He said, one thing I'll guarantee you, we're not going to use the same philosophy we did at Cleveland. Remember there, they tried to play it a little bit too close to the vest. Look for Vasser to be a little bit conservative, but still really try to go to the front. Paul?
Well, let's take a look at some of the onboard cameras that we have available. First, of course, you've seen this. Michael Andretti looking down in his cockpit on the nose of Bobby Rahal's car. We've got plenty of onboard cameras here for you today. There's Jimmy Vasser, the current points leader, the key figure in today's fight over his shoulder. Robbie Gordon right up in front of the rear wing. Interesting aspect that's given us some fascinating video. And Scott Pruitt, a man that some think may actually score a victory here today, driving, of course, on the Firestone tires. And we also have a view on Roberto Moreno's car, the data control machine. He sits back in the field, but those cameras sometimes provide some interesting analysis of the first couple of laps. There's that final turn as they begin now to head down toward the green flag on the pole. Ribeiro, Zanardi alongside, nicely aligned, very close up. Right-hander stands just ahead, and there they go. Green flag comes out. Ribeiro leads them into turn 1. A lot of brake smoke coming into the corner. Do they all get through clean? No, they don't. There's debris bouncing a couple of places. It looked like it might have come off of one of the Penske cars. We'll keep an eye on that as we look back through the field. And yep, there you see one.
Yeah, it looked like Al Unser Jr. Boy, that's going to dash his hopes a little bit, but it looked like Al Jr. had his front wing knocked askew.
Boy, and take a look at the battle of the front of the field as already Zanardi makes his move on Ribeiro and gets past, picks up the lead at turn 3. Fernandez drops into 3rd place. Then Greg Moore. Johnstone gets in trouble. Johnstone goes sideways on the circuit. Of course, being a road course, they'll keep it green flag if they can, yellow only in that area.
And that's Bobby Rahal's car. He looked like he just passed. I thought it was Scott Pruitt. He looked like he was slowing. Look at that gap behind Greg Moore that we see on the screen right there.
Well, we saw the spin by the first car, which looked to be Parker Johnstone, and it may have collected even more. We'll try and get information on that. Zanardi, then Ribeiro, and there's Al Unser Jr. heading into the pits, Gary.
This is something that the Penske team has rehearsed countless times. They have a very quick release on the nose. They may be able to change the nose faster than virtually any other team out here, but they're having problems. I don't know if it's damage related, but it'll be a fresh nose as the precious seconds tick by for Al Unser Jr., and that championship hope is suffering right now. Jack?
Problems as well for two key point contenders. You're looking at Scott Pruitt. He had a tire go down. If we can turn the camera to the other side, you can also see Gil DeFerrin. He's being serviced. He came in without a nose as well, Paul Page.
Yeah, he came in totally without a nose, so something happened back there. Fortunately, the nose is a pretty quick change on these machines.
Well, it is, as long as when that nose got knocked off that it didn't screw up some of those screw holes and they can't get it back in. But what this really does is Jimmy Vasser's championship hopes really just came alive here with two of his big contenders getting knocked out.
Yep, took a big jump forward. Not necessarily out, but certainly slowed down. Michael Andretti, there's where Parker Johnstone got in trouble. And then the rest of the field bottled behind him. Looked like Michael just lost grip.
Well, or lost grip or got in there a little too late, and Parker braked a little early. Oh, there's Jeff Krosnoff trying to pass on Raul Boesel. You see how tight it is there, but what that also did is it took the first 4 cars, it gave them a gap on the field.
And the first 5 are Zanardi, Ribeiro, Fernandez, Greg Moore, and Bobby Rahal. You're absolutely right. Rahal came forward as a result of those confrontations, but he has been able to close up to that gap and sits, well, there's the gap, and then Rahal, probably 150 yards back.
But interesting, see right there in front, that's Al Unser Jr. He's in danger of losing maybe another lap here. That's the leader in the red car right behind him, right there.
Showing.
There are your front 4. They all run right together, coming up behind Little Al, heading for turn 3, key passing area.
Boy, you know he doesn't like to give up that lap. That could be critical.
Parker Johnstone either sideways again or still sideways. Full course yellow as they split to come around him. Yellow flags flying everywhere. The course marshals want to get him slowed down before this situation, as he's right in the center of the racetrack.
And boy, did that really hurt Al Unser Jr., because if he had not gotten past right then, he would have had a chance to go back, tag onto the back of the field, and wouldn't have lost that lap to the leader.
With concrete walls on both sides, there's a very precarious position for the Motorola car of Parker Johnstone as they pull it back to get it away from the edge of the racetrack. Zanardi leads. 3 laps are complete. We're full course yellow. Yellow while they get Parker Johnstone cleared and back underway on the course. Gil DeFerrin, of course, seemed to suffer the most from whatever confrontation there was. Let's go to Jack Arute.
And Paul, this is the way Gil DeFerrin came onto pit road, minus the front nose section. It's molded so it actually latches on and you put these little bolts in. Because it was hit in the carbon fiber, though, it couldn't get, the new nose couldn't get seated on properly. Of the 9 bolts, they got 7 of them in tight. There's 2 of them missing. You may wonder, how did Gil DeFerrin lose his nose? Not with the altercation with Al Unser Jr., but with a spinning Parker Johnstone.
All right, so in the first laps here, the first 3 actually, we've had Zanardi jump from the outside of the front row around the pole sitter Ribeiro, take the lead. Ribeiro dropped back into 2nd place, and then a little confrontation involving Parker Johnstone when he lost it in front of Michael Andretti, and as the rest of the field came through, a couple of guys bounced off of one another. We also saw Paul Tracy have his problems.
Yeah, but he moved up from 13th where he started to 6th.
So Paul Tracy, who has been hot here most of the weekend, hometown crowd, of course, looks terrific today. He got bottled up on the start, but boy, he made a good move on it.
Whoa, that was close. Did you see how close he was under Zanardi's? And I think he lost a little ground. See how he dropped away? He obviously had to pull in real hard on the brakes.
On board Bobby Rahal's Miller car sitting back, 5th place, just behind Greg Moore. The field, of course, able to bunch up on that yellow, and they're all on top of one another again.
What you got to be careful of now is if he starts projecting that position, they'll lose touch with Zanardi, give him a clear field. Look how they're bunched up back there.
Interesting situation there, though, at 2nd place. Those are teammates. Ribeiro and then Fernandez, both out of Steve Horn's Tasman team. Nearly identical cars. Key difference being that Ribeiro has won twice, and Fernandez has yet to win. So did they let each other alone?
I don't think so. I never had those team orders in any of the teams I drove with 2 cars, especially with a guy that's never won and one that wants to post another victory this year.
Looking back to Bobby Rahal as Paul Tracy continues to work on him. Let's go to Gary.
Paul, we mentioned the crews watch the big screens. Doug Peterson, one of the owners for Parker Johnstone, what were your thoughts when you saw your driver setting sideways?
I just hope that nobody's going to hit him. He was broadside in the middle of the track. It was a pretty frightening moment. But apparently the car's okay. He's radioed in and said the car's okay. He just got bumped at the start and spun. Simple as that.
Thanks, Doug.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so there's the situation with Parker Johnstone. Michael Andretti, you're on board with him now. He sits in 7th place. That's Paul Tracy just ahead. We've got a couple of radio connections. One of them is this car, Michael Andretti, so we'll open that and listen. Well, there's the interval now. So you've got an idea of how far ahead Zanardi's able to pull. There he is as he's getting ready to head into turn 3. Through 3. Target car comes off the corner, and it seems like Ribeiro's catching just a bit.
A little bit, but he lost so much in that restart just on that one corner, and it's very difficult. He's not only got to try to drive ahead and look at the car, but he's also got to be watching his mirrors and looking after that teammate.
Ribeiro was almost 2 seconds behind the leader, 1.9 as they came across the line, so we'll keep track of that. Next point of measurement will be back at the start-finish line again. And here's where we'll get our update. So it stays the same. Ribeiro not able to make up on that lap. A lot of hope rides with Greg Moore. Of course, another Canadian yet to win his first race. Was very powerful in Indy Lights here last year as he took the championship in that series. And he definitely feels like this could be his day. Certainly the team does.
Well, I talked to him earlier today, and he really feels like it's strong. I talked with the team last night. They certainly feel that they've got as good a chance. He had a little bit of a mishap in qualifying yesterday when he jumped up to 3rd. He dropped to 5th because he missed the last 10 minutes, but he's very confident. What's happened right now, Paul, is everybody gotten through the first couple of laps, sorted themselves out, and now they're settling down into the race.
Fangio spins it. Now he's going counter course, trying to find a place where he can turn around. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So Fangio just lost the back end, coming off at 3, but there is a rise there.
It is a rise, but he just got sideways. Did a very good job right there of just backing up in the middle of the road, not trying to correct it. And then what you tried to see was he was spinning the car around because it's very narrow down there, lighten up the back wheels and spinning.
And in fact, right behind him was his teammate, P.J. Jones, Gary.
Yeah, and we have a radio report, and we're not sure from which one of those cars it came that he had no brakes. So definitely one of those guys in deep trouble. I don't know if it happened to be Juan or if it was PJ.
I don't think it was Juan because his spin came after the corner. I mean, he was well through the braking. He was on the part where he's standing on the gas coming off the corner. I think he got it sideways and just lit it up and spun.
Well, here comes Fangio in, though, so maybe, in fact, it was him. And he found out he didn't have brakes after he came through the corner.
Or possibly he just got in so deep that he was just scrambling trying to save the car.
11 laps of the scheduled 95-lap distance here. An 11-turn, 1.78 miles around on this road course at Exhibition Place. Gary Gerald, can you update us on Fangio?
Yeah, no forward drive gear. Something in the drivetrain is broken. That's why he's coasted to a stop here at the pit entrance.
And that explains it, doesn't it, Danny?
That does. I think that's probably what might have happened when he was spinning the car around as well.
So watching the target car of Alex Zanardi. One race this year. He comes home as the winner, and that, of course, was at Portland. Great celebration after that. Let's go to Robbie Gordon, who sits back in 10th position right now. We're just going to ride and listen.
Actually, those little winglets out the side of the roll bars that look like ears sitting out there are actually the camera that they're mounted in there. The little cameras are mounted inside that. That's what we were just viewing from the shot before.
On the right side is the camera. On the left side is the transmitter. Gordon started 18th, up to 10th. So at 12 laps complete, Alex Zanardi, who jumped into the lead on the start around Andre Ribeiro, continues the lead. No change at the top of the order. Back at the Molson Indy, we are in Toronto at Exhibition Place and riding with Michael Andretti. That's Paul Tracy just ahead. Michael currently occupies 7th position.
Well, and you saw that white puff of smoke. We've been following this for a couple laps, and he does it a couple of places, but there particularly every time there's a crown in the road, gets in there, gets that right front wheel a little light, but that'll eventually create a handling problem because that tire will get awful square on him.
You know, I want to keep an eye on Paul Tracy too. A couple of times under shifting, I've seen a puff at the back of the car. And I wonder if I'm seeing things or if something's going on there. Look down from the Honda Helicam as they make in the turn off of Lakeshore Boulevard here and back in through the Exhibition Place. And I think Michael's making up some distance.
He is certainly right on him. I think you're going to have to get a little bit closer than that, or quite a bit closer, to make an attempt to pass. Let's see if he locks up here again. This is the corner where we've had the problems. Watch there. Nope. That's the first time in about 4 laps that he hadn't locked up coming in there.
But you know what he did? He didn't make a sharp turn into the corner.
He rolled in.
Took more of an arc into the corner that time, I think, because Michael's there. Michael lets him know he's there. Same thing he did last time. Puff there, though.
Yep. This is a really tough course when it comes to passing. You've got to be real sure, and you've got to have a clean shot when you go in there. Because if anything goes wrong, you bang with the other guy, you knock a wheel out of line or break a nose, your day's done.
Everything the same at the front of the field as Zanardi leads it. This battle for second place between teammates Ribeiro and Fernandez. Coverage, of course, here in Ontario comes from CBC Television. And they have really outfitted this place with plenty of cameras to give you the coverage.
It looks to me a little bit like Ribeiro is possibly holding Fernandez up.
We saw Fangio have his problems earlier. Gary, do we know clearly now more about them?
Yeah, well, the team is persisting in trying to track down the problem. It's a linkage problem. They have got all kinds of equipment at the back of the car, and they're going to work on it. He stays in the cockpit, hoping that he can get out and still get some more development time with that Toyota program for Dan Gurney. But right now, it's pretty bleak.
So that battle is broken off there at the front of the field again. They're all waiting station on one another. Let's go back to 17th place. This is Scott Pruitt, who I think they'd hoped he'd be a little further up. We've also turned on his two-way radio. That's Raul Boisel just ahead of him. Saw him smoke the right front there too. Jackaroo.
Paul, let's update you on Scott Pruitt. Remember, he was on pit road with a flat. He did not cut the tire. Playing air there, he's talking about the understeer that the car has developed. It means it wants to push out to the wall. He did not cut a tire, guys. What happened is when he was involved in that altercation, when everybody came together, They came up against some carbon fiber from another car and sheared the valve stem off, so the tire immediately deflated. That's a tough way to lose air.
The other voice you hear on the two-way radio is Jim McGee, team manager for Pat Patrick's team.
He was taking a look inside to see if he could dive under. You kind of accelerate and then go on the brakes there, but look how much ground he lost. And Raul Boesel is a tough guy to pass anyway, but he's not going to just give you the corner like that.
You see there where that one little look inside cost him a great deal for the next couple of corners. Looking back, the battle second, third, fourth. Ribeiro, Fernandez, Moore.
See, I think Ribeiro's holding him up a little bit. Zanardi's pulling away.
Look at Greg Moore.
But Greg Moore has come way down. He's caught him. Look how close Fernandez. This is the battle right here.
And boy, it's tight right now. Two nearly identical race cars, and then Greg Moore charging in just behind. Gary Gerald.
Juan Fangio now out of the car. It turns out it may have been clutch. Tell us about the track conditions before you encountered your problem.
Well, it's fine. I mean, for me, it was better because in qualifying, I didn't have the chance to run at all on Friday, and on qualifying on Saturday, it was very slippery for myself. So today it was quite good, and the car feel all right. It was not great, but it feel all right.
Making progress with this team. Thank you, Juan.
Yes, getting better. So we have to keep working and trying to improve in every race.
Paul.
There's the leader. We'll see an interval now. Back to second place. There's Ribeiro. There's Fernandez. Greg Moore again looking for some clean air, too.
I'm not sure I understand entirely. It's a little shorter that way, but he's got to dive back out there. I want to get behind Fernandez and get a little pull down there. He's got that Honda power. And, of course, Greg Moore in the Mercedes. I'd like to get that yank down the straightaway and suck me down there.
Well, is there maybe another issue? It's a hot day here. The sun is shining. In fact, we don't have a cloud cover overhead right now. Could he be facing an overheating problem, trying to get air through the coolers or anything like that?
I wouldn't have thought so. It's been hot the last 2 days. They've got that down pretty pat. I don't think so.
So two Hondas and then a Mercedes. Ribeiro, Fernandez, and then Greg Moore. As they go back now, Paul Tracy still trying to work on Bobby Rahal. There's the Miller car, Bobby Rahal, in 5th place.
Of course, what they're all hoping is that Ribeiro will hold them up because they know they're all closing on that group in front of them, and they need a little bit of help to close that gap.
So the battle for seconds continues, and it is almost 4 seconds behind Alex Zanardi. 22 laps complete. Pit stop should be very soon. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. No finish. Now he tries to defend his crown at the Michigan 500. That's Sunday, July 28th, right here on ABC Sports. Well, it's tightening up at the front. No changes in the field, and pit stops are coming up, Gary Gerald.
Paul, in fact, as we were in that break, we saw the first of the stops here. Stefan Johansson taking advantage of the fact that the window is open early coming in. They had a problem on the right rear, and it ended up being a 27.5-second stop. That was very disappointing for that team. Most of the teams, if their car is handling well, can go to about lap 35 or so, maybe as long as lap 38 before they make the first of 2 scheduled stops. But we're going to be seeing a flurry of activity now. The window's open. Jack?
Well, Gary, for Alex Zanardi, your current leader, the radio chatter back and forth knows full well that the window is open for pit stops. They want to go to approximately lap 35. Their main concern right now, they want Zanardi to back off a little bit, not get into too much heated race traffic racing. They feel like he can get back in a sequential order during the pit stop. So they're counseling right now about maybe backing off just a bit until the pit stop.
Well, we've been watching the front of the field as they all come around the 15 car, which is Scott Goodyear, his first race back since his accident in Rio. Now, why is the front end closed up the way they are? Well, they all ran into an impediment. The first to do that, of course, was Zanardi, and the impediment was Hiro Matsushita, who not only was in front of the leaders, but he got into a little bit of trouble, actually right in front of the leader of the race. He got the car sideways, and in doing so, once he got it sideways, he caught it, kept it off the wall, but Zanardi was right there behind him. There's that battle for second place. We can go back and take a look at that when Hiro bottled up the field. Look at that. Whoa.
Paul, I think one thing else that's happened here is I believe that Ribeiro's not on the pace that some of the other cars want to run, and he's really not going fast enough. Everybody's bunched up behind him, and we're also seeing everybody get in traffic. Those things combined, it's always easier for the leader to get through, but when you're trying to protect the position and dive through traffic, it's hard.
So there's the target car, Roberto Moreno, number 4. Or excuse me, Alex Zanardi. We were looking at Roberto Moreno, had him on the mind.
He just passed him.
Yeah. Roberto Moreno is actually running back in 19th place as we look over at the EDS computer, which keeps track of the cars here. A full 3-second lead over second place. Ribeiro. Here comes Ribeiro. He comes around Moreno. Fernandez has dropped back just a bit.
Again, Paul, I think that's more due to traffic than anything else. You can gain or lose that gap so fast just depending on where you pick a slower car and where you get past him. If you're held up for 2 corners, you're going to lose some ground. If you catch him on a straightaway.
This is on board 7th place Michael Andretti as he was pursuing Paul Tracy. This is on the pit straight heading for that first turn.
Got it out there a little wide, little traction problem, but he wanted to protect that position. But look at Tracy.
You get wide.
Yeah, you get wide.
Paul Tracy and forget it.
That's great racing though in there. And that's what the drivers wanted, was another spot around here to pass, and they look like they've got it with that increased length on that front straightaway.
The yellow and black car you get a glimpse of, that's Richie Hearn back on board Michael. And on board Robbie Gordon as he comes down into the pits for his first stop as the stops now come underway. And we're going to take a look at it from this point of view.
Okay, hits the mark. The guy goes in. That's the air jack in his left hand. Fueler's going in the side. The guys are changing the front tires up there. Robbie's talking to Derek Walker, resetting his fuel meter. Down it comes. That water you saw was just in case there was any extra fuel out there. They wanted to get that away so it didn't cause a fire, and away he goes.
And the other hose on top just forward of the air jack hose is the vent. As soon as they see fuel hit up there, fueling's done. What I think is fascinating is they can generally change 4 tires faster than they can refuel the car.
Well, of course, that's to do with the way they set the tank, because it's gravity fed, and they can't set it too high to make it go in faster, so the fuel flows slower and they can do the tires.
It's also something to see the IndyCar officials out when they're first setting up the pits at any one of the IndyCar racing events, measuring those tanks, measuring the angles, because everything has to be identical. They don't want you to get 1 second advantage anywhere.
I got to tell you, I used to sit in that cockpit going, come on, why are these guys taking so long? And then I sat out one time. I was out of the race early and sat in Rick Mears' pit while they did a pit stop, and I couldn't believe how fast they were doing everything.
Look how close. Ribeiro is now on Zanardi. So Alex Zanardi is at the front of the field still, but the gap has closed down to a 1.5 seconds. We'll be back right after this. At the Molson Indy, we've just seen Ribeiro and Fernandez teammates get together. They actually touched just a brief interval. They're closing down on Alex Zanardi, the leader of the race. We still anticipate the pit stops just any second now. Here's what happened. Boy, take a look at this. Ribeiro drifts across.
He went over to block him because he didn't want to get past because of traffic. Fernandez, look at this. Oh, he's pushing him through there. That was kind of like NASCAR racing there. A little bit of shoving going on through the corner.
Nudged him about 3 different times. Come on, Andre, let's go, let's go, let's go. What that's done is close the interval first to second down to 1.3 seconds. There's the Ducati car. That's Fernandez. Here is the leader of the race, and there is the interval. We'll see it again here. Ribeiro, Fernandez, both closing in. And then the split goes back to Greg Moore, Bobby Rahal. Moore caught in traffic at the moment.
Again, traffic at this track plays such an important role. That's Rahal locking him.
Rahal, boy, he really locked him up coming in there, but he gets caught in the traffic.
Sometimes it helps you, and sometimes it hurts you. But that traffic always plays a part. That was nice of P.J. Jones to move over and let him go racing there, because if he had gotten stuck behind him there, he'd have been stuck until he got on the front straightaway, which is about 5 corners away.
PJ, of course, drives for Dan Gurney's All-American Racing and Toyota Power. They have been working with that engine. A lot of new pieces this weekend. Got them a little more horsepower, a little more RPMs. The team definitely working on their development, and in the hands of guys like PJ and Krosnoff, Fangio, once they get the power, look out.
Something else that happens here with the drivers, Paul, is when you're running through traffic, if you can, you try to pick your spot where to pass and close the guy in, lock him in behind a slower car so you can pull away in a couple of corners. You're always trying to find a way to play the traffic to your advantage and the other guy's disadvantage.
Over on the pit straight, they are laid out for Ribeiro right now. They also are laid out for Fernandez. They're the teams waiting for their cars to arrive. That's the Tasman team laid out there.
You don't think there's going to be any inter-team competition there, do you?
No, no problem. Yeah, right.
With those guys running as close as they are, which, by the way, those mechanics are watching on the screen. Look at this.
Yeah.
They're coming in. They couldn't be any closer.
So both of them head in together, and Gary Gerald's there.
Well, this is exciting. Team pride on the line. Who's going to get the quickest service? Ribeiro, and behind him, Fernandez. They're separated by about 1 pit length here. That'll be a little bit of an advantage for Adrian if he gets down off the jacks quickly. Remember the 60-mile limit. Fernandez is moving first. Ribeiro still in front. They can't get the fuel in the car.
He was trying the whole pit stop to get that fuel hose in. I don't think he's got any fuel on board yet.
And they have to manually get the car back up. They've moved the car so that the hose can get a clean connection. They still haven't got it in. Oh, what heartbreak for Andre Ribeiro.
They were stretching the hose too far to make the interlock earlier. Now they've moved the car. You can see the refueler shaking his head. And finally, you see a little blurb of fuel at the top, and Ribeiro goes out.
Boy, that fueler is upset because he knows he just cost his driver a tremendous amount of time on the track.
Well, now wait a minute. In his defense, the first time when they hit in, he was sitting a little bit out. Driver?
Zanardi.
That's the driver.
Here's the leader in, Jack.
Alex Zanardi comes out of pit road, and he knows his crew watched that whole problem with Andre Ribeiro. Zanardi, on the other hand, hits his marks exactly. They have determined they will make no changes except add the fuel. In 12.8 seconds, the advantage for him, too, is the last pit. He didn't have to adhere to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now Jimmy Vasser comes in. He's complaining of grip problems. They're going to make an adjustment on the tire pressures for Jimmy Vasser. They feel like they've got to get some points, as you guys have said. And right now, they're still hunting for some of those single-digit points. Back to you.
Well, as Greg Moore came across the line, he was scored as the leader of the race. He's not yet made his pit stop, but he came out right behind Ribeiro. So next lap around, Ribeiro should pick up the lead.
Let me tell you, on that fueling situation, I've had the same problem here in Toronto where I got blocked. And what happened was that the my crewman, John Haskett, actually pulled the tank all the way over to the car and fueled the car. So it helps to have a big refueler.
Hussein Ribeiro thinking Zanardi. Nevertheless, it didn't happen. Moore stays out. The actual order on the course right now is Moore, Andretti, Zanardi, Herta, Jimmy Vasser as they last cross the line.
Jimmy Vasser really has to take advantage today of Gilles de Ferran and Al Unser Jr. Both of them have to have trouble. They're way, way back in the field. This is his day to add some points to his total.
There's Greg Moore as he stays out in front. Has not yet pitted. Mercedes power on that car. Apparently getting a little further on the fuel tank as finally Greg Moore comes in and Jack Arute is there to greet him.
And his entire team is awaiting his mark. Now, each team has a series of marks on their pit stall. It's the driver's responsibility to hit them exactly. He does. Goes up on the jacks. Now, this is a very calm pit stop. This crew is always very calm. It really reminds me of the type of demeanor that their driver, Greg Moore, has. Waiting for the fuel. You can hear him revving up the engine. And he's off and away very quickly as right in front of Greg Moore, Scott Pruitt's team begins to get ready to service the Patrick car.
Michael Andretti came in at the same time as Greg Moore. Moore was in and out in 14.9 seconds.
Boy, it was
so Alex Zanardi picks up the lead.
Good stop, but he lost that ground to Fernandez. That was the green and red car you just saw go by him. Of course, he's on cold tires, so you can't go as fast as somebody who's on hot tires.
So now everybody has made their first stop of the day. 39 laps are complete of the 95-lap distance, and Alex Zanardi is back in front at the Molson Indy. The Thunder rumbles on the deuce. ESPN2 as the USAC Midgets take to the tracks live auto racing from Indianapolis Raceway Park. It's ESPN2's Thunder. That's Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the deuce. All right, here is the situation now in the Molson Indy Toronto as Parker Johnstone rolls to a stop just beyond the pit exit. Alex Zanardi is the leader of the race, followed by Bobby Rahal about 5, almost 6 seconds back. Then Adrian Fernandez, then Paul Tracy.
Did you see what was happening? He didn't get his, he either had a suspension damage or his left rear wheel. Look, it's coming off there.
Serious damage.
Yeah, and they do not want to roll that back because if they do, that wheel will come off. That car will really be stuck there.
So the closest action on the circuit, though, not much right now. Everybody has really pretty well strung out. Is at the lead. It's 6 seconds from Zanardi back to Rahal. A couple of those people that we are tracking in the points fight. Well, Al Unser Jr. is having a terrible day. He's stopped twice to everyone else's one pit stop, and he sits back now in 18th position. Another man that figures in the fight is also Zanardi. He is up at the front of the field, came in the pits in first place, went out in first. Rahal came in the pits in fifth and came out in second. So he's the man that on the stops really made the best advantage. And Ribeiro had the worst part of it, came in second and left the pits in 11th place.
Yeah, that fuel and stop really cost him big time. But Bobby Rahal is always good around these street circuits. He's smooth, he's fast, he knows how to drive them. He's won here before. He's always a factor on these type of circuits.
And of course, least we forget in the championship fight, third place coming into this event in the fight was Gilles de Ferran, who had his problems early on and is no factor whatsoever. Leaves us with looking at Jimmy Vasser, who sits in 8th place. He'll pick up a few points and probably will stay in the lead.
Well, if he scores those points, but on a day like today, when your two main rivals in the championship are in trouble, that's when you have to score big. You've got to get more than an 8th place. He needs to get up there in that top 6. He'd like to be in the top 4 or 5.
There's Parker Johnstone. They finally get his car back away from the course, and by getting him back there, it at least prevented the possibility of a full course yellow. So he is back in a safe position. His day is done. Paul Tracy battles third place Fernandez. And we, of course, saw that disastrous stop by Andre Ribeiro. Gary Gerald, any more information on what happened?
Talked with the fueler Robin Fast, and he said it was a case of the car being mispositioned, didn't hit the marks. He was in close to the wall. They had to reposition the rear end. The concern was, I wondered if they'd had a malfunction that might impact their second and final scheduled pit stop. He said, no. It's a case if we get it on the mark, we'll be fine. But the 45 seconds in the pits cost him 9 positions, from second for Ribeiro all the way down to 11th.
Yeah, and Danny, there you were. You weren't going to blame the driver, were you? And we know where your background comes from.
Well, you know, what can I say? You know, it's a very fine line there with that. Whoa, there's Parker Johnstone's rear suspension.
Jackaroo?
What you're looking at, guys, is something that failed, 37 laps after the accident happened with Parker Johnstone. That suspension failure, that's what you've got to be worried about when you tap the wall or you spin. You see right here? And Parker is out of the car right here. And we're going to say real quick, boy, you thought you made it through unscathed, you were okay, but then this happened.
Well, we thought we did. We went a few laps down, which was a real shame because we got a lot of people from Motorola here, and the car was working real well.
What about the track conditions? You've been out there. How good are they? How much grip can you get on those concrete parts?
Well, you can right at the beginning when you've got full fuel and fresh tires, but within a few laps, you expect Dorothy Hamill to do a triple toe loop passing. It gets pretty slick, but unfortunately, the damage from the first lap contact finally failed after that pit stop. It's too bad. The guys worked real hard. We look forward to Michigan.
Michigan's next. Remember, he was fast there last year, Paul.
Well, here's some new information. The 11th place car, Andre Ribeiro, formerly the pole, formerly second. They have laid out once again to bring Ribeiro in. So we'll watch for that car to head in. Gary Gerald, any idea why they're bringing him back in?
Only thing we heard was he wants new tires. I don't know if he's got a vibration. I don't know if he suspects one's going down, but they've got 4 fresh Firestones laid out. The crew waits for him, and here he comes around the curve. Things going from bad to worse for this guy who had such high hopes starting from the pole. We'll see if they can get that fueling device in cleanly. This time they do. It won't take very much fuel, of course, because he was just here. Service is complete, and there he goes in 10.5 seconds. Now that's more like it.
So freshly shot now. Andre Ribeiro heads back into the fight, though the combination of pit stops has not helped his race at all. The leader is, of course, Alex Zanardi, possibly looking at win number 2 of the season and his career. Bobby Rahal is in second place. We look back through the field, and there is Rahal, right behind Eddie Lawson's Delco car. Then comes Adrian Fernandez. You see Ribeiro there. He, of course, is well behind the lead, but there is Paul Tracy, and he is trying to catch Fernandez. So that's the closest interval on the circuit right now. Greg Moore is just behind Tracy in 5th place.
And I'm not so sure whether Steve Horn's telling him to help out his teammate Fernandez. Ribeiro, of course, trying to get his tires up to temperature, having just come out, and he's carrying a little heavier fuel load than Paul Tracy, so he's going to be a little bit slower than he'd like to be.
Well, let's take a look at some positioning in the points fight. Jimmy Vasser in 8th position can earn a couple of points. Al Unser Jr. has no chance. Jill DeFerrin, no chance of earning points. And that, of course, the 25th in parentheses there, that's position on the track, is finishing position. He's already finished. Christian Fittipaldi, he's going to pick up some points in 9th place. Michael Andretti at the moment stands to take a big jump, and the biggest jump of all by Alex Zanardi, because with the 20 points due for the victory here, should he make it, that'll bring him right up in contest.
And if he keeps on pace, he does get 1 point for leading the most laps, which would make it 21. Everybody used to laugh at those 1 points, but they sure add up at the end of the season.
Now you look at the teams that really know how to take championships, like Newman Haas and Penske, all of them who have done well in the championship. They've paid very close attention to making sure they lead the most laps, pick up the pole whenever possible. I mean, to the point of valiant efforts to make either one of those single points. And to clarify, DeFerrin is still on the track. he's out of the running in terms of picking up any points because he is so far back on the order right now, 25th and a number of laps down.
And of course, Al Unser Jr. is in 18th. There's a lot of racing left to go. He only has to get to 12th to actually pick up 1 point. That's where the points start. They go from 1st through 12th. And, you know, stranger things have happened.
The first 10 are all together on the leader lap, and then all the way down through Stefan Johansson. De Ferren, we mentioned he was on. He's off, but he's going to get back on. They've got a little shortcut. He can hang a right here. This is at the end of turn 1. Right underneath the Princess Gate.
Oh, did he stall it there?
Yeah,
Or he's time for a reverse?
Here's what I got there.
Oh.
Well, go for that exit road, pal.
Yeah. And then he got in there. He still was going too fast. Bumped that. Might have damaged that nose. You hit that tires like that, but.
Yeah, they want to get him around, try and get him back into the fight so he falls further behind. Gary Gerald?
Down here with Andre Ribeiro's crew, and now we know what happened with the tires. Take a look at this, Paul. Here's a classic flat spot. They said send to Akron, but look at all the rubber that was rubbed off when he had to lock up the brakes. That's why he said he had to have new tires. Came in and got the new skins and was gone.
Here's Michael Andretti's move just a moment ago. Gave a little punt to Roberto Moreno. Moreno looks over. Who did that? Fortunately, both of them were able to continue on. Leading up to today, Zanardi has led 261 laps in the last 5 races. He leads still today after 50 laps. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Coming up next, the biggest stars in senior golf shoot for the title in one of their tour's most prestigious events. Ray Floyd is the current tournament leader and will go to Michigan for the final round of the Ford Senior Players Championship. That's next here on ABC Sports. Riding with Michael Andretti, he is 6th place. And on the past few moments, he has been complaining of understeer on the two-way radio in conversations with his engineer, Lee White, in the pits.
Boy, you see how rough that track is with his hands darting around like that, bouncing around. That's one of the smoother sections there. I also think earlier when he did that little love tap on Roberto Moreno, he damaged the left front wing slightly. I saw it on a head-on shot, and that might be adding to that understeer.
Michael has elected to keep the car out and not make a change, but they have been discussing more. He spun it completely, got it going again. Delco car is Eddie Lawson coming up behind, driving for Rick Gallis. Watch the blue car.
Got in there hot. Locked up those rears, spun around. Whoa! I don't know if that did any damage. Those tires, they look pretty soft, but wing looks okay right there. I don't see any real damage, so he should be okay.
Yeah, but like you said a number of times, though, Danny, it's a sport where thousandths of an inch makes a lot of difference. That wing could have gotten jolted.
That's right, but as we saw even Greg Moore yesterday in qualifying, banged the wall hard enough to break a rear toe link, and he kept going a lap and was almost as fast as when it was normal. I'm not so sure he's that affected by it.
Well, Alex Zanardi leads it. Richie Hearn, of course, started well in the back as he comes back his first visit with IndyCar since run at Long Beach, and he's had some problems earlier this week and today. Gary?
Paul, he had a big test crash early in the week. I know you were very, very sore. How tough has it been for you today?
Well, I probably shouldn't even have run, but I thought maybe I could make it through. But yeah, I was okay for about the first, first 30 laps, and then my neck is just so, my neck and my back is so sore. I just can't even really hold on to the steering wheel, and I'm just in the way out there. So, instead of just doing that, I just decided to come in.
A former Atlantic winner here, out of it because of the problems with the neck and shoulders, Paul.
Driving for John Della Penna. Richie Hearn, we hope that he feels better very quickly. He's fun to watch. Zanardi, 57 laps complete. Alex Rahal, your second place car. Fernandez, then Emerson Fittipaldi, who's not in the top order, and there's Tracy. And here comes Ribeiro trying to get his way back up through this field, get back on that lead lap.
But Paul Tracy's still trying to get around him. Remember, he came out of the pits in front of him. He still hasn't found a way. And, of course, his teammate Fernandez is pulling away. I got to believe that Paul Tracy's a little bit frustrated by that.
Let's go back to Michael. 6th place. And will again open his radio. Amazes me when you watch Michael. Watch his helmet as he gets the back end loose a little bit. Watch under acceleration, he comes way up in the seat.
Then goes down under braking. Also notice that Jimmy Vasser does that as well. Seems to come up when he gets to the corner though.
There's Vasser, and what they were talking about was Brian Herta, who's just behind Michael. 1 second back. 8th place Jimmy Vasser.
Of course, there's a little rise there, so he comes up to look over the front of the car a little bit, see exactly where he is. So he goes down when he goes into that braking area, just ever so slightly.
And nobody does it quite like Michael.
Of course, I'm sitting up here analyzing. I'd hate to think what I look like in there bouncing around.
You had very wide eyes when we look at you head on. Paul Tracy, as he finally gets his way around Henry Ribeiro, but it took this just before.
Boy, he can't enjoy that after that. That's exactly when you flat spot a tire like that, lock it up that hard. That's what, oh, there's Michael, he's off.
So the handling problem, we think induced by a problem with the front wing.
See the right front tire? Look at those black marks. That's where he's locked up and flat spotted that tire right there. See how those flat spots on there? That'll make the tire square. That's what Andre Ribeiro had to make a pit stop for it with that big spot. That's just what, and we saw Paul Tracy do that just before we turned to this shot.
And with respect to Michael, we won't open the radio now. So I'll tell you what, Michael is one of the pleasant ones to listen to. He's really well controlled on the radio.
Was that in reference to Michael, or was that in for our fans out there that didn't necessarily want to hear that language?
A little of both. Though Michael does not. I mean, that's not really in his nature. There's Mario, the Don of the family, the senior Andretti.
Greg Moore getting by right there.
Mario is able to watch as Michael finally gets going.
Oh, he's got that locked up a long time. Then the back. Then he's trying to keep it going, but he was more concerned with getting it stopped. That's why he stalled the car.
Yeah, but what got him to lock that far back?
Well, what happens, that's pretty late into the corner. I got to tell you, if he didn't get on the brakes until then, what the situation is over there on that side, it's very rough. There's some bumps down in there, and if it gets a little bit light going in there, one of the tires comes up and he's in there deep, you lock it up.
In fact, you can see a flat spot on the right front as he comes into the corner right after he hits the brakes the first time.
Oh yeah, he was in there deep. He was in there. Wait. Whoa.
I'll just park right here. So Michael Andretti takes a big spin and drops down to 14th place in doing so, while Alex Zanardi in the target car continues to lead. 61 laps of 95 done. The Molson Indy, and nothing's changed in the order. Alex Zanardi is a full 6 seconds ahead of second place Bobby Rahal, way down that straightaway. Here comes Bobby. Adrian Fernandez sits back in third place. There he is. Paul Tracy is the next in the actual order, and then Greg Moore. Those are your top 5. And this little action, Robbie Gordon, no, Scott Goodyear who is driving still with a special seat. I mean, he's back racing, but they have some very special foam in his seat. His back, remember, he just shattered his back in a crash in practice for the race in Rio. This is his first one back, but still, he's being very protective.
He is being protective, but he has been driving. He raced against us at Le Mans. He drove for Porsche over there, and they finished third. So I don't know, and he did some 24-hour tests prior to that. So he's been getting some seat time.
Bobby Rahal. Gary Gerald.
Paul Tracy's in for what should be his final service. Chuck Sprague said we'll make no changes on the car. The man who had a third place at Milwaukee, his best finish this year, a Penske team that has struggled, has gone 2 decades since it's been this far into the season without a win, just under 13 seconds.
Oh, and watch your speed limit through here. They've been watching that very carefully. P.J. Jones felt that sting. They black flagged him once for breaking the pit speed limit, 60 miles an hour. On the way out from the black flag, he broke the pit speed limit, 60 miles an hour, brought him in again. Now here comes Zanardi as he comes down into the pits, and he makes his second and final stop of the day. Jack Arute waits for him all the way down at the far end.
And Paul, this afternoon, Alex Zanardi is missing a critical member of his team, Rob Hill, who is resting in the hospital after having major medical problems earlier in the week. It doesn't seem to affect the crew right now, though. They go to work. They're going to change all 4 tires. That's a normal standard procedure here. This, as we said, should be the final stop of the afternoon for your leader, Alex Zanardi. Now he's put the car back into first gear. They're waiting. They want to make sure they've got enough fuel. It took a long time for the fuel to come in, and I did not see any fuel come out of the vent hose. 18.2 seconds. That's a long stop, guys.
Yeah, Jack, we need to check into that because they were shaking the vent hose as well. I didn't see any either. And now they're reporting that Zanardi had a pit speed violation coming into the pits. He came in at 76 miles an hour, and that means a black flag. Oh, boy.
That's a bad way to throw it away. But you know, the part that amazes me is that all these cars are outfitted with a control that won't let the car go over 60 miles an hour if they hold the button down.
So that may give the race to this man, Bobby Rahal, Jack Arute.
Well, Bobby Rahal comes onto pit road. Remember, guys, he won the first race here at Toronto, and he is playing that cat and mouse type game. His crew goes to work. Again, it's most important to get the full load of fuel necessary. He is off and away in a very quick stop in 12.7 seconds, and Bobby Rahal can really sense right now that he might be able to overtake Alex Zanardi, because remember, Zanardi's got to come in for a stop and go.
And that's compared, of course, to the 18.2 for Zanardi plus the stop and go.
And not only that, Bobby was only 6 seconds behind, so he would have made that up roughly just in the pit stop, because he was 6 seconds quicker than Zanardi.
So there's the Zanardi car. We expect a black flag for that car any time now, though that has not been officially confirmed out. And here comes the man who picked up the lead of the race, Adrian Fernandez. And Fernandez comes in for his stop.
Fernandez right here on the targets perfectly, watching the refueling process, the tire changing process, no front wing changes, holding him. Oh, engaged in gears. Boy, we got him at 12 seconds flat on my clock, Paul.
I'll tell you what, that was great. Good stop by the Tasman team. And here's some good news. They say now that they miscalled the 76 mile an hour speed limit violation. Zanardi did not violate the speed limit. They're going to let him alone. How come I can't talk that kind of thing out of state police?
I don't know why that never worked for me when I was driving either. They seemed to always throw those penalties on me. My excuse was we didn't have that button in that time either.
So Greg Moore picks up the lead of the race, and Bobby Rahal is right behind him. Moore has not yet made his stop, and then is Fernandez, then Rahal behind.
But does that mean that Fernandez has picked up the spot on Rahal? Because he was just behind him before they made their pit stops.
Yep. Theoretically, that's what's happening.
So that will
I mean, that was a blistering stop by Fernandez.
But it was only 0.7 of a 0.7 of a second faster than Rahal.
Well, while they still show Greg Moore as the leader and he has yet to make his stop, the focus is going to be on Fernandez Rahal. And by the way, Zanardi, who's in fourth right now, going to be right there. So as we watch Greg Moore on what should be a stop for his Mercedes-powered car, we're talking about the button that keeps you under the speed limit. Jack Arute, what's that all about?
Well, Paul, let's show you. On each steering wheel, there's a red button. You see this button right here? Now, what that does is go back to the engine management area, and when it is depressed, it will make sure that the car does not go beyond the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. But here's part of the problem. Normally, it's on the right-hand side. You can put your finger on the button, but when you've got to shift, you got to take your finger off the button. That's oftentimes what accounts for that big spike in speed sometimes. You can't keep your finger on the button the whole time.
Look at Zanardi as he works on Bobby Rahal now. And this, of course, is critical because it would mean the lead eventually, as Fernandez should assume the lead as soon as Greg Moore comes in. And then it will be a very tight battle, Fernandez, Rahal, and Zanardi. Now, here's a further update on that radar situation. What's happening?
Zanardi seemed like he got in there late. You see how much ground he lost? He came out very wide in turn one. I think he must have just gone in too deep, got it locked up or something along those lines.
All right, the explanation on the radar gun is that the one that got him at 76 is not the official one. It's an advisory radar gun that tells the drivers what speed they're at. And the difference is positioning. One of them catches them right on the entrance to the pits and tells the drivers about where they are so they can make a judgment getting it slowed down before they get to the speed limit line. So that explains how one had him at one speed and another at a legal speed. It works out in the favor of Zanardi.
Also, it's the driver's job to figure out where he wants to put those switches in the car. Everybody's got them a little bit different. They're not all exactly where they are on, we saw on, I think it was Gilles de Ferran's car. They're not always in the exact same spot. So you got to be able to do all those things when you come into the pits. It's your job to fix it.
Well, Greg Moore now closing up behind the entire Walker Racing team, which is Scott Goodyear and Robbie Gordon. Michael Andretti has come into the pits. And I'll tell you what, Moore carried this car on fuel further than the rest of the field on the first stop. He is doing it once again. Now 71 laps deep in the race with no stop, or without the second stop. So the Mercedes in Greg Moore's car stretches its legs, and when he pits, Fernandez, Rahal, and Zanardi should start a great battle for the lead. Tonight on ABC, Martin Short guests on a brand new episode of Muppets Tonight, followed by America's Funniest Home Videos. And then after Lois and Clark, Patricia Arquette and Steven Weber star in Betrayed by Love on the Sunday night movie. ABC is where you'll want to be tonight. All right, now, in the past few minutes, Jimmy Vasser has come into the pits, made a stop, headed back out. He sits currently in 8th place, and there he is. You're on board with him as he drops through. Greg Moore has still not come into the pits to refuel. He's completed 74 laps, and he just went by the pit road again, so they're getting amazing fuel mileage out of that Mercedes. Nothing changes as we look down from the Honda Helicam relative Fernandez, Rahal, Zanardi, and Christian Fittipaldi, who sits in 5th place. Once Greg Moore comes in, though, he is now 10.5 seconds ahead of 2nd place Fernandez. Not enough of a pad to come back out in the lead, but definitely, if they have a good clean stop, enough to come out in the battle. And the fact that he's carrying the fuel so long should give him a short stop.
Well, it should, because they won't need as much, but we've seen all season long where he's gone incredibly long. Oh, there's a target. Is that Zanardi getting by Bobby Rahal? He was right behind him, it looks like it.
Without getting a glimpse of the rollover bar, it's so hard to tell. But it makes sense that it would be.
I think so, especially with Vasser just having made a stop. Yes, it is. It was Zanardi going by Bobby Rahal for 2nd spot.
So that could be critical to the finish as well as moving actually into 3rd spot, but it'll become 2nd as soon as this man makes his stop But he doesn't seem like he's intent on stopping at all. Now I'm beginning to wonder, how far can he go? His first stop was on lap 38.
Well, all season long, he's gotten great fuel mileage, but what will happen here, he's looking for, he'd love to have that yellow. The longer you can go. Look at that. I think his tires are probably going off a little bit there. Of course, when you lock it up that heavily, it will have gone off. He might call and say, hey, look, my tires are going down. I need to come in. I still do not see anybody out in his pit, out in the pit lane, getting ready for him, so he might go one more lap.
And that cost him a second as he came around that first turn and got out. With the pace laps, Moore went 41 laps on that first tank of fuel. So he shouldn't have to pit until lap 80, Jackaroot.
And that's exactly what they're trying to do. They want to run this string out as far as they can. Now it's come up. The team goes over the wall. He will come in this time. Now here's the thinking behind it. Not having to take on a full load of fuel. And Danny, you know, it depends on how you've got your car set up. If you want to run with a heavy load or a light load, lighter at the end, it ought to help. It ought to help him to be able to run a little bit better as he tries desperately to seek his first win, Danny.
Well, Jack, also one thing, he'll have a quicker stop because that fuel's not as much in the tank right now. The gravity won't force it out as fast. He'll be able to make a quicker stop to get that light load of fuel.
And he'll be able to do a time stop because he won't have to wait for it to go up through the vent.
All right, so we wait for Greg Moore to make his stop, and when he does, this man, Adrian Fernandez, who has not won in the IndyCar, should take over. Well, you can see as you look at the front of that Ducati car that he's been in the fight all day. Look how dark the rear wing is and how much rubber's built up on the leading edge of the front wings. Here comes Greg Moore, and Jackaroot waits for him.
And it never ceases to amaze me how you will time the amount of fuel necessary for Greg Moore. It's a simple black wicker bill that a man on one side of the wall uses. He will tap the fuel man in the back when he thinks they've taken enough. They do. It's a quick stop. He puts it back in gear. 10.5 seconds and he's off and away.
And where does he rejoin? That's going to be the critical element. That's Fernandez. He's over on the backside with Zanardi over on him. And so Fernandez picks up the lead of the race. And Zanardi moves to second. Rahal to third. Moore should come out in fourth place. And Paul Tracy in fifth. And by the way, Jimmy Vasser has been involved in a good battle past couple of laps with Christian Fittipaldi while we were keeping close watch on Greg Moore, the leader of the race. And this was part of their battle just a few moments ago. Well, hello, Christian. I'm here.
Jimmy made a smart move there, though. He didn't force it. Christian chopped him, I thought, a little bit too much there, but Jimmy got away with it. He was thinking points right there. He didn't want to knock that front wheel off for the wing.
So Adrian Fernandez picks up the lead of the race, but there is a very hungry Alex Zanardi 2 seconds back. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Adrian Fernandez still the leader here in the Molson Indy. Zanardi is closing down as best he can, and there may be a problem with Fernandez. Gary?
Paul, it could be good news for Alex Zanardi. We just talked with Steve Horn. He's the owner of the Tasman team. He's been pacing down here. He said, what are your concerns? He said, well, Adrian's a little concerned about his brakes. Now, Danny, you've been a driver. You correspond with team owners through races. What does a little bit of concern about brakes mean to you?
Well, that obviously means that he's radioed in and said, I've got some kind of a brake problem, which I would suspect is a hot brake pedal. You know, it's going down to the floor, and he's having to pump it a little bit. That's a big concern when you got somebody like Zanardi that close behind you.
Oh, Bobby Rahal is not real happy with the Farron. You see him point as he came up behind him. Rahal is in third place trying to catch Zanardi. And right now, DeFerrin running off the pace back in 20th and 4 laps behind the leader is very definitely a problem for Rahal. But look at DeFerrin pull away there.
Yeah, but if he got him in one place, especially when Bobby's racing for a spot and a critical, it could end up being the lead or second place. You don't want to lose ground in traffic to somebody who's that far down, even if they're fast.
Well, Tracy is 4th behind Rahal, but not anywhere near him right now. Michael, problem, slows, raises his hand to tell everybody behind him that he is slowing, and the report originally was that the header may be gone. We'll listen to the radio.
I don't know if Michael just stopped there to let the traffic go by, but he looks like he's not moving at all.
I'll tell you what, with 84 laps complete, moving down in the final 10 laps of the race, I would be thinking about a full course yellow with Michael sitting there.
That spot is definite because it's going to be full course. I see the flags are going out right now.
So with a full course yellow, Michael in probably the most precarious possible position on the race course on the entry to turn 3 where all the passing occurs. They're going to go and snatch him off the course. That'll bunch up all of these guys, and then it will be a sprint to the finish. IndyCar safety team pulling Michael Andretti off of the course. No power on that car. He is out for the day. Now remember, let's take a look at these point standings. We were talking right at the beginning of this race about how they looked and how tight the battle was. Now let's take a look at the points right now. Well, Vassar still ends up as the leader in points. That's assuming if the race were to finish right at this second. It's not going to. But Alex Zanardi takes a jump into the top 6. Well, everything else up there remains pretty much the same, but by the same token, look how tight.
It bunches him up awful good, and the run that Zanardi's had, he could be a factor.
Now, they're playing very careful strategy in the Ganassi pits, aren't they, Jack?
Well, Chip Ganassi is the man on the radio with Alex Zanardi. He's waiting for Zanardi to come by.
Green.
Next lap, we will be green, is what they're saying. Now, Chip, you thought that there was a fuel problem with the leader car with Fernandez, and you were trying to chase him down. That all goes away now.
It does, Jack. I mean, I'd say we're a little off target right now where we want to be. We thought we'd be in the lead right now, but I think he won't have any problem passing Fernandez. We got plenty of laps.
That's a lot of bravado. What makes you think you can do that?
I got a great driver.
Gary?
Steve Horn down here on the radio to his driver, checking with his crew, talking to him. We're going to see if we can get a word with him. He watches them file by us here on the front straightaway. Steve, how concerned are you about this brake problem?
Well, he really hasn't said too much about it. At the beginning, he was, a little concerned about it, but, we told him to save him a little bit, and he seems to be doing okay now.
Does this yellow help you in that scenario?
I think it does. Any yellow helps, doesn't it? It gives us all a breather.
How nervous are you? I'm
not nervous. I think Adrian can do this, and we'll see.
Looking for his first career IndyCar win, Adrian Fernandez.
So now, under the new policy of the IndyCars, they will put all of the leaders in order on the course. There they've done it, as a matter of fact. So they're all bunched up.
With not a lot of laps to go, this can be very, very exciting. And it's going to be unbelievable because look where Vassar's back there. He wants to score some more points. He's already been chopped once pretty hard by Christian. Bobby Rahal, by the way, has a couple of cars in the top 6 up there because Brian Hurd is right behind Greg Moore. And we need a good clean start, but everybody's going to be going for it with 9 laps to go.
And the thing to watch for, of course, the key corner is that turn 3, and turn 1 has been a place that they have been able to get by. Certainly turn 1 is critical in setting up your run so you can go down through 2, which is just a slight bend that's part of Lakeshore Drive, and then when you make the right-hander off Lakeshore, that's the key.
That's right, and I stand corrected. When they go by, there will then be 8 laps to go.
Right. I'll tell you what, this track always seems to produce interesting racing. It's done it once again.
And now, of course, they're going to come by with a green and 1. It'll be 7 laps when they actually take the green.
Yeah, they're telling them to make sure they're in that lined up order. That's what that signal is from Jim Swintal, the chief starter of IndyCar. Jack Arute?
Danny Sullivan, I've got a question for you. Nobody will give me the answer down here in the Ganassi pit, but for the last couple of races on restarts, they always radio to Alex Zanardi, make sure you use the button on the restart. What button are they talking about? You're an old driver. Was there a trick there on the dash somewhere?
Well, Jack, of course, I've only been out of it about 9 months, but I didn't have any trick button. I do not know what they're talking about there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll find out before we get to Michigan what's the story about this button.
Yeah,
if it was 20 years ago, I'd be really worried about that button. I'd be leaning in there trying to find out exactly what that's doing.
20 years ago, that might have been nitrous oxide in there to give a little extra boost. But I don't know, because you just want to be in the right gear. Make sure everybody will have their fuel turned up now to 100%. The fuel mixture will be at 100%. This is going to be flat out everything you can do for 7 laps.
And I want to emphasize, we're not suggesting anything untoward with the Ganassi team.
Absolutely not.
Because Chip's a really big guy and probably can hit really hard. Adrian Fernandez, Zanardi, Bobby Rahal, they will go green as they come onto the pit straight once again. The crews, with some anticipation, look up to see how the cars are going to come off the corner. PPG pace car making the final couple of turns on the course.
PPG pace car's lights are out. That's how the drivers know for sure that it's going green.
And the pace picks up as Fernandez anticipates the green flag. And here we go, 6 laps to go. Rahal tries to move on Zanardi.
See everybody sliding out there?
Oh.
They don't have a lot of temperature in those back tires. They've been trying to warm them up and stay off of the marbles.
I thought for a moment that either Christian or Vassar had gotten way out. Rahal tries to make a move again on Zanardi. Zanardi's trying to make his move on Fernandez. No contest in the first pass through turn 3.
That's the best thing that could have happened to Fernandez, is Bobby Rahal being all over Zanardi.
Paul Tracy and Greg Moore both lined up on Rahal, and they won around. Boy, look at Tracy and Rahal. And Moore closes on Tracy again.
Well, we got it a little bit out, lost a little ground there. Did you see the car move around? He quickly recovered, though.
The glimpse of the red car occasionally, as we look down with 5 laps to go, is, of course, Zanardi. 9/10 of a second ahead. There he is, Fernandez. Then Zanardi. Here comes Moore. And he gets around Paul Tracy coming down the inside.
Good, clean pass there.
Greg Moore to 4th. Moore has led today. Of course, the crowd is Canadian. He's Canadian. So is Tracy, for that matter. So their focus is back here in this battle for 4th. But nothing's changed at the front. In fact, if anything, Fernandez has been able to pull away. So were the brakes a smokescreen?
I don't really think so, but I think he didn't have as big a problem as they thought. He was probably just being cautious, radioed in. But those laps helped him cool everything down. He got away. Now he can focus on just driving as smooth as possible, because he's got a nice lead over Zanardi with only 4 laps to go.
They flash across the line. Again, our thanks to our colleagues at CBC Television for the coverage here today as they continue to watch this battle. Rahal, Moore, Tracy. 3-way battle for 3rd place. There's Fernandez. There's 2nd place Zanardi, and I think Rahal's catching him.
I think that whole group is, and I think Moore is catching Rahal. Pulled away a little from Paul Tracy.
They're back bottled up again as they pass through turn 3. Moving down the closing moments of this run in the Molson Indy at Exhibition Place in Toronto. Whoa! Big time collision.
Oh, whose car is that? The back of that car up against the wall.
Ribeiro's in there. Johansson is in there. It's the other car that we really want to know about.
Wait a minute, who's that?
Way up the line. And we have a very serious accident. Very serious accident. And the course is blocked. I don't know how they're going to get cars through.
Whoa, watch this, watch this. This car's really got to slow down. He didn't realize it was that block. They have got to stop this.
And that's Jeff Krosnoff over close to the wall, the one they're working over. As Steve Olvey heads down, one of the doctors with the IndyCar safety team, and Eddie Lawson tries to work his way through. So now, the closing laps, we have a serious accident here. 91 laps are complete. It breaks off the battle at the front of the field. We'll be back. Well, with this rather serious accident over in turn 3, they have just displayed on the front stretch the red and checkered flag. Here is the replay. Eddie Lawson into Krosnoff.
No, that is actually Stefan Johansson there.
Johansson.
And he was moving out to pass another car, which looked like it was Gilles de Ferran. I don't think he saw Krosnoff. He couldn't have seen him. And he moved over. Boy, he got up into that fence. That's his rear end of his car that ended up in front of Ribeiro.
They work with Jeff Krosnoff still in what's left of the car, and I have not seen that much damage to an Indy car in a very long time. And what this does is gives the race to Fernandez. Zanardi in second place. It has been flagged 2 laps early at the 93rd lap. So Adrian Fernandez wins his first race in IndyCar on his first lead since Vancouver in '94. And so Adrian Fernandez, under a bit of a cloud, takes the win here, and they have stopped the cars well down the course while they make an attempt to service as best they can the situation involving Jeff Krosnoff. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, mixed emotions in this time of urgency for our driver on course, but here's Steve Horn on the jubilation side. You've brought another young man to his first IndyCar win. What are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm pleased for Adrian. I think a lot of people said he couldn't win. He wasn't competitive. I think we've proven that this year, that this is another young star on the rise. As you say, I hope there's no major problems out there. But it was a great, tough race all the way, and a credit to the team, and particularly Firestone. We had some tremendous tires today.
Congratulations, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Paul?
So Steve Horn worried, as we all are, about the condition of Jeff Krosnoff. And Adrian Fernandez climbs out and begins a celebration, somewhat tainted because of this accident and the early stoppage of the race, breaking off what could have been a terrific battle to the finish. Alex Zanardi unofficially in second, Bobby Rahal third, Greg Moore fourth, Paul Tracy in fifth, followed by Brian Herta, Christian Fittipaldi, Jimmy Vasser, Robbie Gordon, and Scott Pruitt. We'll be back.
It's just past there. I don't think they would have gotten it.
So back at the Molson Indy Toronto, there is Adrian Fernandez, who is on foot and some distance from the winner's circle here. They stopped the cars well back because they wanted to keep the race course as clear as they possibly could to make sure that any emergency equipment that needed to get down to the situation involving Jeff Krosnoff had a nice clear run down there. That's actually over on the backside in turn 3 on Lakeshore Boulevard. And just now, for the first time, the Tasman team, Adrian Fernandez's team, is able to make it down. The second win of the season for Steve Horn and Tasman. Andrew Ribeiro, of course, won at Rio. It's the 8th win of the year for Honda and the 7th for Firestone. So the celebration begins down the way. The positioning for Fernandez was in fact good. They at least said he may have had a brake problem, but it sure didn't show. He was pulling away as the accident occurred, bringing out the red flag. Here is the unofficial results with a race stopped at the 93rd lap of 95. And we'll go down through the order of standings for you as Adrian Fernandez takes the win, followed by Zanardi, Rahal, Moore, and Paul Tracy. We'll give you the unofficial results all the way down through the field here. Interesting run toward the final seconds of the race, though it seemed that there shouldn't be a doubt that Fernandez was pulling away and probably could have continued if they had run the final 2 laps.
Oh, I don't think it was even a question. He was well clear. He would have had to have something drastically go wrong for him to stop there. He looked good. He was smooth. He had been running all day. He drove a fabulous race. I don't think that was a problem, and I think Zanardi had his hands full with just what was going on behind him.
And of course, the final moments of the race saw a serious accident. Stefan Johansson getting together with Jeff Krosnoff. He flipped up into the fence, and they are still working over on that side. We're going to do everything we can to get an official report on exactly what this condition of Krosnoff, Jeff Krosnoff, is. And we are waiting for those reports now. Of course, our priority, as well as everybody in IndyCar and everybody involved with the organizer, is first the safety and the condition of Jeff Krosnoff medically. We're going to concentrate on that. We're not even going to speculate on anything over on the backside of the race course and let those people do their work, which they do so well. The good news about IndyCar is that, like all of the tops in motorsports, they have really excellent people who take care of medical emergencies, and they plan for them, hoping that they would never have them. So what we'll do is we will leave you. We'll come back during our golf coverage and give you a full report, not only on the situation involving Jeff Krosnoff, but hopefully, too, we'll be talking with Adrian Fernandez if he finally is able to make his way all the way down to the winner's circle and begin to enjoy the fruits of his very first victory in IndyCar racing. It was a fascinating race today. It always seems to be one here at Toronto. Our prayers, of course, go up for Jeff Krosnoff. We hope that the report is good and that he and his wife, Tracy, we pray for them both. And we will keep track of them here, and we'll come back to you during golf in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Developing at the Molson IndyCar race up in Toronto. So let's break away here quickly and go to Gary Gerald in Toronto. Gary?
Brent, unfortunately, here at the Molson Indy on the streets of Toronto today at the Canadian National Exhibition, a tragic result with 3 laps remaining in the race. Dr. Hugh Scully, who's the medical director for the Molson Indy, has just addressed the media literally moments ago and announced that driver Jeff Krosnoff, 31 years of age, from La Cañada, Southern California, in his rookie IndyCar season, lost his life instantly in an accident that occurred on the high-speed back straightaway. 4-car incident. Andre Ribeiro, Emerson Fittipaldi, Stefan Johansson also involved but uninjured. Also tragically, we report that a corner worker identified as Gary Irvin was also fatally injured, died instantly as a result of this amazing crash coming down the back straightaway. A 3rd corner worker was slightly injured and is being attended to at this time in a Toronto hospital. Dr. Scully and Andrew Craig, the chief executive officer of IndyCar, making the announcement just moments ago. Again, driver Jeff Krosnoff lost his life this afternoon, as did corner worker Gary Irvin. A 3rd corner worker was also injured, but not seriously, is being treated at a Toronto hospital. That's the story from Toronto. Brent?
And welcome. It's RPM tonight. It is a somber one. We start in Toronto in the Molson Indy race. The finish and the season points are footnote rather than headline material, because rookie driver Jeff Krosnoff and a safety worker named Gary Irvin died Sunday after a terrible crash in turn 3 with 3 laps to go in the race. The pictures you're about to see may be disturbing to you. Late in the race, Adrian Fernandez coming by. He was on the lead, but that, of course, was inconsequential to what happened behind him. The lead pack going by now. Stefan Johansson and Jeff Krosnoff run into each other. Krosnoff's car absolutely torn apart. The cockpit winds up on the far side of the track. His car was absolutely obliterated. Krosnoff attended to by on-site medical personnel. We look at it again. Johansson and Krosnoff, you see on the left side of the screen. They touch tires. Krosnoff, he goes airborne into the wall. And it was not good. A stunned crowd watched as this played out before them. The race was red flag, checkered flag at the same time. Adrian Fernandez was in front, but of little importance. The second worker, she suffered a lacerated scalp, but there were 2 deaths in that terrible accident. Adrian Fernandez earns his first victory in an IndyCar. Rookie Alex Zanardi, who has a win and 2 runner-ups in his last 3 races, was second. Bobby Rahal ended up 3rd in this race. Canadians Greg Moore and Paul Tracy finished 4 and 5, and Brian Herta was next in 6th. Red flag with 2 laps remaining. Our Sally Larvik is in Toronto.
Well, Ken, the announcement came at around 4:50 this afternoon in the interview room at the Molson Indy track, and I'll have to say that it was somewhat expected, because normally if the injury is not severe, they tell us right away, and they tell us the condition of the driver, but everybody was pretty quiet on this one until the announcement was made and a news conference was called.
Resuscitation of Mr. Krosnoff was started immediately. He was effectively in complete cardiac and respiratory arrest and unconscious at the time that they got to his car. Established an airway quickly, breathing for him, and he was transported by ambulance with Dr. Olvey to the Western Division of the Toronto Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 4:20 this afternoon.
And I am with Andrew Craig right now. And Andrew, it had to be a very difficult task for you to make that announcement during the press conference today.
This is obviously a very, very sad day for IndyCar. Jeff joined us at the beginning of this year. He was very much liked by his team and by everybody really in the series and everybody at the sanctioning body. It's obviously a terrible tragedy, and obviously our thoughts go out to his wife, Tracy, to his parents, and his many, many friends. It's a very sad day for racing.
And I understand his parents were here, and also his wife was at the track when this tragedy occurred.
That is correct, and I believe they were at the hospital when they were informed of his death.
Now, in Canada, it's got to be different than the United States as far as an investigation goes, and I know that you said you can't say anything because the coroner is staging his own investigation. What does that involve?
Well, my understanding is what happens is the coroner has to prepare an official report, and he'll do that by talking to witnesses at the scene of the accident, people who are involved and so forth, and then he has to make a determination as to the cause of death.
You know, when you look at that tape and you wonder why something like that would happen on a street course, you can understand that on a super speedway. Were you surprised at what you saw?
Well, I think at this stage I can only say we're just shocked by what we saw. It was obviously a terrible tragedy, and at this stage I think that's really all I can say.
Okay, and so there's going to be more coming in the future. Thank you very much, Andrew Craig. A very, very somber day here in Toronto as a tragedy occurred in Jeff Krosnoff. Back to you, Ken.
Thanks, Sally. As we said, this was Jeff Krosnoff's rookie season in IndyCar racing. But what he'd done before behind a wheel had many believing he had a chance to be a major player in the sport that ended up taking his life. IndyCar fans were just getting to know the name Jeff Krosnoff. This was his rookie season after 6 years racing mainly in Japan. 2 years ago, Krosnoff finished second overall and first in his class in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. His promise as a driver was noted from the very start of his career. He won the Gilles Villeneuve Rookie Award in 1983 at the Jim Russell Racing School for Formula Fords. In 1984, he finished second in his first pro season, racing in the Mazda Pro Series. In 1988, he won the SCCA Race Truck Rookie of the Year. And in '92, Racer Magazine named him America's Star Choice of Tomorrow. He seemed to have all the skills to be a success at any level. So he left the good thing he had going in Japan to take the wheel of an IndyCar this season. His best finish this year was just 15th, but this was the big time, and he was only a rookie. Jeff Krosnoff would have been 32 years old in September. He leaves behind his wife, Tracy.